The galaxy was old and it belonged to the Zerath Dominion. For thousands of years, their fleets had crushed every rival. Their banners spread from one spiral arm to the other. To most species, the Dominion was eternal, unshakable and undefeatable. When they said submit, worlds obeyed. When they said fight, armies marched. Their rule was law, and their arrogance was absolute. But not every species had yet bent the knee. On the edge of a forgotten arm of the galaxy, there was a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Its people were new to the galactic stage. They called themselves humans. The Dominion barely noticed them at first. Humans were latecomers to the stars, still building ships that looked fragile compared to the massive cruisers of the great powers. Their colonies numbered only a handful, scattered and vulnerable. To the mighty Zerath, humanity was a backwater race, nothing more than another footnote in their history of conquest. Yet rumors had begun to spread. Traders spoke of human warships fighting pirates with strange, desperate tactics. Refugees whispered about humans refusing to pay tribute to Dominion envoys. And some said humans had a strange fire in them, a refusal to yield even when logic demanded surrender. When the Dominion Council heard these whispers, they laughed. "Another primitive species who thinks bravery is enough," one of the lords sneered. But the Dominion was proud, and pride demanded obedience from all. They could not allow defiance to grow unchecked. So they sent a fleet. It was not their largest fleet, for they did not consider humans worth such effort. But it was more than enough. 200 warships supported by carriers, destroyers, and troop transports. Their leader was Admiral Siractor, a veteran who had conquered a dozen worlds. To him, humanity would be just another quick campaign, another victory for the Dominion. The fleet entered Sol space with confidence. Their ships blotted out the stars as they approached Earth. Broadcasts were sent across the system, filled with threats and promises. "Submit to the Zerath Dominion," Admiral Siractor declared, his voice carried by translation machines. "Pay tribute. Disarm your fleets. Accept our rule. Do this and you will be allowed to live." On Earth, the leaders of humanity gathered. For the first time, every nation and colony spoke with one voice. They had seen what happened to species that bent the knee: slavery, humiliation, and eventual extinction. To surrender was to die slowly. To resist was to risk dying quickly. And yet, when the question was put forward, humanity chose resistance. The response to the Dominion came not from a politician, but from an old general who had once fought wars on Earth itself. His words were short and sharp. "Do not mistake silence for weakness. Do not mistake distance for fear. We are humanity. We will not bow." The message spread across the galaxy. To most alien races, it was madness. How could a young, fragile species defy the Dominion? They whispered among themselves that Earth would be reduced to ashes within a week. Some pitied the humans, others mocked them. But a few, those who had long lived under the Dominion's boot, felt something stir within their hearts. Admiral Siractor, however, was furious. To be defied by such insignificant beings was an insult to his honor. He ordered his fleet to prepare for invasion. But first, he decided to humiliate them. He sent another message. "You have one cycle to reconsider. When it ends, Earth will burn." On Earth, the countdown began, but humanity did not waste that time. In secret, far from the eyes of the Dominion, humanity had been preparing something extraordinary. Over the years, their scientists had studied scraps of alien technology, salvaged from battlefields and traded through black markets. They had built something new, something unique, something no alien mind had dared to imagine. It was called the Aegis Array. It was not a ship, nor a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a network of satellites, hidden across the solar system, connected through quantum relays and powered by human ingenuity. Its true purpose was known only to a few, but whispers said it could strike not just at fleets but at the very heart of the Dominion's strength. The array was not yet tested in battle. It might fail. It might succeed beyond their dreams. But humanity had no choice. The leaders debated long into the night. Some argued for surrender, believing survival was better than annihilation. Others insisted they could fight even without the array. But the final decision was clear. Humanity would stand. Across Earth and its colonies, preparations began. Fleets were armed, soldiers trained, civilians evacuated to shelters. Engineers worked without rest to bring the Aegis array online. Hackers and mathematicians pored over alien codes searching for weaknesses. Pilots sharpened their skills in simulators, knowing that soon they would be facing the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. And through it all, an unspoken truth settled over humanity. They were not fighting just for themselves. They were fighting for every species that had been crushed under Dominion rule, for every voice that had been silenced. If humanity could strike even one blow, it would show the galaxy that the Dominion was not eternal. The Dominion, meanwhile, continued to underestimate them. Their scouts reported human ships moving into defensive formations, but the Zerath commanders laughed. Primitive, they said. Predictable. To them, humans were nothing more than insects waiting to be stepped on. They did not see the hidden satellites. They did not suspect the Aegis array. And so, as the final hours of the countdown ticked away, the stage was set. The Dominion prepared to crush what they saw as a rebellious child. The galaxy prepared to watch another world fall. And humanity prepared to show them all what it truly meant to resist. For too long, humans had been ignored. For too long, they had been dismissed as unimportant, unworthy of fear. But now, on the edge of destruction, they would reveal the truth. The unnoticed species was about to shatter the galaxy's greatest power. The Dominion had given humanity one cycle to surrender. That cycle was nearly over. Across the Sol system, tension hung heavy. Fleets of human warships waited in orbit, weapons armed but silent, civilians huddled in shelters deep underground. On Mars, children whispered about the alien monsters who would soon descend. On Earth, factories thundered night and day, producing weapons, drones, and supplies. Everyone knew the same truth. When the countdown ended, war would begin, but the Dominion did not fear. On the flagship Eternal Blade, Admiral Seractor stood on the bridge watching the blue planet on the main screen. His scales shimmered with pride and his eyes glowed with cold arrogance. Around him, officers worked with calm efficiency. To them, this was not war. This was theater. Humans think themselves clever, Seractor sneered. But they are only children who have wandered too far from home. They do not understand the price of defiance. His second-in-command, a younger officer named Krelvan, bowed. "Shall we commence orbital bombardment once the cycle ends?" Seractor shook his head. "No. First, I will take their world intact. We will enslave their leaders, break their armies, and show the galaxy what happens when insects dare to roar." The bridge crew laughed. They had seen this story play out many times before. Rebellious species always spoke of courage, always shouted of freedom, but in the end, their cities burned. Their fleets were shattered and their children were sold into Dominion chains. But on Earth, humanity was not laughing. The leaders of Earth and the colonies met once more in secret chambers. Holograms connected them across light years. Tired faces stared at each other, knowing that any mistake could doom them all. General Marcus Hale, the same man who had spoken to the Dominion before, leaned forward. His voice was steady, though his eyes were weary. "They are coming," he said. "We cannot stop that, but we can choose how the galaxy remembers us, as another broken people, or as the ones who struck back." The council fell silent. Then Dr. Elena Varga, head of the Aegis project, spoke. Her voice trembled with both excitement and fear. "The array is ready. The satellites are hidden. We can activate it as soon as the fleet enters range." "What if it fails?" someone asked. Varga's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then Earth will fall. But if it succeeds, the Dominion will never forget this day." The room filled with whispers. Some argued they should stall longer, try to negotiate, buy time for the array to be tested more. Others argued that to delay would only invite more Dominion ships, making the fight unwinnable. At last, General Hale raised his hand. "Enough, the Dominion has given us no choice. If we wait, they will only grow stronger. If we act, we may give the galaxy hope. The vote is clear. We stand." And so humanity's fate was sealed. The final hours of the countdown arrived. The Dominion fleet gathered near Pluto, preparing to move deeper into the system. Hundreds of ships gleamed in the darkness, each one larger than a human city. Their energy shields glowed faintly and their weapons hummed with quiet menace. From Earth, the humans watched with grim determination. The Aegis array satellites floated unseen among asteroids, moons, and hidden orbits. Each one carried powerful transmitters and experimental systems designed to do something no alien empire had ever tried. Attack the Dominion not with firepower, but with information. Human hackers had discovered long ago that Dominion ships relied heavily on a central command and control network. Their ships were powerful, yes, but also rigid. Orders came from above, and the lower ships obeyed without question. If that network was broken, chaos could follow. That was the key. That was the gamble. The Dominion believed strength came from obedience. Humans believed strength came from chaos. On the Eternal Blade, the countdown reached its end. "Time is up," Krelvan announced. "The humans have not surrendered." Saraktor's lips curled into a snarl. "Then let their skies burn. Begin the advance." The fleet moved forward, engines blazing. Thousands of fighters launched from carriers, ready to swarm human defenses. Planetary scanners screamed warnings as Dominion ships approached, and then, humanity struck first. The Aegis array came alive. Invisible beams of quantum-coded interference burst from hidden satellites, slamming into the Dominion network. Firewalls collapsed. Command signals twisted into gibberish. Orders turned to nonsense. On one Dominion cruiser, the captain screamed as his navigation system displayed false coordinates, sending the ship veering off course. On another, weapons locked onto friendly targets instead of enemies. Across the fleet, chaos spread like wildfire. "What is happening?" Krelvan shouted, staring at the bridge displays. Saraktor's eyes widened in fury. "We are under attack. Find the source." But it was already too late. The human fleet surged forward. Small compared to the Dominion armada, but fast, agile, and desperate. Human warships darted among the confused enemy like wolves among sheep. Missiles streaked through the void. Railguns fired slugs at near light speed. A Dominion destroyer exploded, ripped apart by concentrated fire. Another was boarded by human marines who fought with brutal ferocity. Everywhere, human ships moved unpredictably, refusing to follow the patterns the Dominion had studied for centuries. Saraktor slammed his claws into the console. "These primitives dare!" On Earth, people watched in stunned silence as the battle began. News broadcasts carried images of Dominion ships colliding, fighters spinning out of control, and human vessels scoring impossible victories. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy saw the mighty Dominion bleed. Yet victory was far from certain. The Dominion was vast, and even crippled. Their fleet was enormous. Slowly, their commanders began to adapt. Manual controls were restored. Communications switched to old, hardwired methods. Saraktor himself roared orders across backup channels, and when Dominion ships fought without their network, they were still deadly. Human warships began to fall. The valiant Pride of Mars was torn apart by plasma lances. The Freedom's wing rammed a cruiser, sacrificing itself to buy time. Thousands of human lives were lost within minutes, but humanity did not falter. Every loss only seemed to drive them harder. Pilots fought until their ships were in flames. Soldiers battled even in the vacuum of space, clinging to enemy hulls with magnetic boots. Engineers rerouted power in burning ships, keeping them alive for one more strike. For the humans, this was not just survival. This was defiance. Back on the Eternal Blade, Saraktor finally realized the truth. "These are no ordinary primitives," he growled. "They fight like madmen. They fight like... They have nothing to lose." Krelvan trembled. "Admiral, what if we cannot break them?" Saraktor bared his teeth. "Then we burn their world to ash. Even if every ship here is lost, the Dominion will not bow to insects." But deep inside, even the Admiral felt a flicker of unease. Never before had a young species dared to strike at the heart of his fleet. Never before had the Dominion been embarrassed before the eyes of the galaxy. And as the battle raged on, one thought echoed across every Dominion officer, soldier, and slave alike. Perhaps the humans were not so weak after all. The day was not yet decided. The humans had drawn blood, but the Dominion was far from defeated. Ships still burned, lives were still lost. Victory or extinction balanced on the edge of a knife. But one thing was certain. The galaxy was watching. The sun rose over Earth like any other day, but no one on the blue planet could call it ordinary. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. Far above the clouds, fleets of human warships floated in tense silence, engines humming, weapons armed. Beyond them, the massive shadow of the Zerath Dominion fleet stretched across the void. A dark wave of power the galaxy had never seen before. It was the day of fire. Admiral Saraktor's flagship, Eternal Blade, led the Zerath Armada. The lords of the Dominion had gathered for this moment, certain that the humans would either surrender or die. Their fleets were vast, their weapons deadly, and their tactics refined over centuries. But what they had not accounted for was human unpredictability. On Earth, the Aegis array hummed silently across the solar system. Hidden satellites camouflaged among moons, asteroids, and orbital debris waited for activation. This was humanity's trump card, the key to leveling the field against the empire that had crushed so many worlds. "Initiate the array," General Marcus Hale ordered. His voice calm despite the tension. Dr. Elena Varga pressed the controls, her hands steady. "All systems online. Quantum relays synchronized. Transmission channels locked." The satellites began to pulse, sending streams of interference into the Dominion fleet. Ships blinked, lights flickered, and alarms screamed. The command network of the mighty Zerath began to collapse. "What is this?" Krelvan shouted on the Eternal Blade. "All systems. Failing." Seraktor's claws slammed the console. "Impossible. This is human trickery. Activate manual controls." But the damage was done. Dominion ships were already in chaos. Missiles struck their own vessels. Fighters spun into collisions. Orders from flagship to cruiser were garbled into nonsense. Confusion spread like wildfire. Human pilots saw their chance. Though outnumbered, they moved with terrifying precision. Ships darted through gaps in the fleet, weaving between Dominion warships. Small frigates targeted weak points while heavy cruisers launched coordinated volleys that tore massive holes in enemy hulls. From orbit, the battle looked like a storm of fire. Explosions lit the blackness of space. Dominion ships exploded in bright bursts of orange and green plasma. Human vessels, though smaller, moved unpredictably, striking where the enemy least expected. On Mars, children and civilians watched from observation platforms. Some hid their eyes, afraid of the spectacle. Others could not look away, witnessing history unfold. Humanity was fighting not just to survive, but to show the galaxy that courage could defy even the most powerful empire. The Zerath, stunned by the unexpected resistance, tried to regroup. Seraktor barked orders, but without their command network, coordination was nearly impossible. Dominion cruisers collided in confusion. Squadrons spun wildly. On one flagship, a Dominion lord was thrown across the bridge as his ship veered off course. "We cannot let them escape," Seraktor roared. "Fire everything. Obliterate them." Yet the humans did not flee. They attacked relentlessly, often sacrificing their own ships to gain advantage. The Freedom's wing rammed a destroyer, tearing it apart to protect a group of smaller frigates. The Valiant of Mars held off a cruiser squadron, trading hull damage for the lives of fleeing transports. On the Eternal Blade, Seraktor watched, fury and disbelief burning in his eyes. How do they fight like this? Krelvan trembled beside him. They are not like any species we have faced before. Seraktor's growl shook the bridge. "No, they are dangerous." Meanwhile, deep in the solar system, the Aegis array continued its work. Signals twisted Dominion sensors, scrambled targeting systems, and redirected fire. Ships that once followed orders blindly now wandered in chaos. It was not just destruction, it was strategy, and humans were the masters. A squadron of human fighters led by Captain Leora Cade slipped through the confusion. Their target, the Dominion carriers. If they could disable the carriers, the enemy fleet would lose its reinforcements. "Stay sharp," Leora told her squad. "One strike, one chance." They dove into the heart of the Dominion fleet. Explosions surrounded them, plasma fire slicing the darkness. Leora's hands flew over the controls, guiding her squad through impossible gaps. One carrier went down in a massive fireball, setting off a chain reaction that destroyed 2 more nearby vessels. Back on the bridge of Eternal Blade, Seraktor's rage reached a peak. "Stop them! Crush the humans! Show them the cost of defiance!" But every attempt failed. Every maneuver the Dominion tried was anticipated, countered, or rendered useless by the Aegis array. Humans were everywhere at once and nowhere at once, a storm of unpredictable fury. Humanity was paying a heavy price. Hundreds of ships had been lost. Thousands of brave souls had given their lives in the defense of Earth. But for every ship destroyed, the Dominion lost 10. The numbers that had once seemed overwhelming were no longer guaranteed victory. The tide had shifted. On Earth, the leaders watched the battle unfold. Scientists, generals, and politicians alike could barely comprehend what they were witnessing. The humans had taken the fight to the galaxy's greatest power, and had not just survived, They had won battles that no one thought possible. General Hale's voice broke the tense silence. They are faltering. The Dominion is faltering. Humanity is doing what no one else could. Dr. Varga nodded, eyes shining. The array is holding. Keep the pressure. Every ship we save, every strike we make, this is our moment. As the sun set on Earth, the battle raged on. Dominion ships burned, twisted, and exploded. Space itself seemed to light up with human defiance. And in the heart of the chaos, the humans remained calm, focused, determined. Seraktor's flagship was surrounded. Damage alarms screamed. Fighters ripped through escort ships. For the first time in centuries, the great admiral of the Dominion felt fear. They are impossible, he growled. Every calculation, every plan, undone by these creatures. Krelvan's voice shook. Admiral, what do we do? Seraktor's eyes blazed with fury. We fight to the last breath, but prepare for contingency. Humanity may have changed everything. And in that instant, a single realization spread across the Dominion fleet. The humans were not merely fighting to survive. They were showing the galaxy that the Dominion could be defeated. Every oppressed species watching from the shadows felt hope stir in their hearts. Every colony that had long lived in fear now whispered to itself, maybe the impossible can happen. By the end of the day, the battle had turned completely. The Dominion fleet was crippled, unable to maintain formation, and with losses that shook even their greatest leaders. Human ships, battered but alive, held the field. The Aegis array continued to pulse across the system, ensuring that the Dominion could not regroup. On Earth, people cheered. Cities across the world erupted in celebration. For once, humans were not just fighting for survival, they were victors. The greatest power in the galaxy had been shaken to its core, and the news would travel faster than light. In the darkness of space, the eternal blade limped away, damaged but still afloat. Seraktor's pride was shattered, and even his fury could not hide the truth. The humans had done what no one thought possible. The galaxy had changed. News of the humans' victory over the Zerath Dominion spread faster than any transmission could carry. Traders, smugglers, and wandering explorers whispered the tale from one star system to another. Within days, the story reached the farthest colonies, the most hidden planets, and even worlds that had long forgotten freedom. Humans had done what no one believed possible. In one day, the mighty Zerath fleet, the fleet that had crushed countless civilizations, had been shattered. And it had been done not by a vast empire, not by ancient technology, but by a single species, underestimated and dismissed for centuries. The Dominion itself reeled in disbelief. Admiral Seraktor had retreated, barely holding on to the remnants of his fleet. His lords argued endlessly, blaming each other, the humans, and even fate itself. But no argument could hide the truth. The age of Zerath dominance was over. On Earth, humanity celebrated, but their leaders knew this was only the beginning. Streets were filled with cheering civilians, children waving holographic flags, and ships flying low in salute. But the council remained in session. General Marcus Hale looked over the reports, his face grim despite the victory. The Dominion fleet is crippled, but they are still dangerous. Their colonies remain under their control, and pockets of their forces will fight to the last. We cannot underestimate them, Dr. Elena Varga added. The Aegis array held, but it cannot be everywhere at once. We have momentum, yes, but the galaxy is watching, and they are afraid of what comes next. Fear. That was the word that spread across star systems faster than news of the battle itself. Fear of humans. For centuries, the galaxy had bowed to the Dominion. Species had learned that resistance meant death. Slavery, destruction, and extermination were their lessons. And now, one small, stubborn species had stood up and won. Ships from neutral systems, once content to watch in silence, now altered course. Traders hesitated in their routes. Mercenaries reconsidered their contracts. Even the most loyal allies of the Zerath began to question their allegiance. Across the galaxy, rebellions ignited. Systems long oppressed began uprisings. Colonists seized control from Dominion governors. Soldiers deserted their posts. The once unshakable empire faced a crisis of faith. In the core of the Zerath Dominion, panic had replaced order. The ruling council convened emergency sessions in their crystal towers, voices raised in fury and fear. They are a young species, one lord hissed, his claws shaking. Nothing more than insects who stumble blindly. How could they defeat us? Saraktor growled, his eyes glowing with anger. They did not stumble. They fought. They struck at our fleets, at our command, at our pride, and they succeeded. We cannot ignore this. The galaxy sees weakness and they will rise against us. But if we strike back, another lord said, we risk further humiliation. Their reach. They are clever, cunning, unpredictable. Saraktor's jaw tightened. Then we must be smarter. But no tactic, no weapon, no fleet we have. We'll undo what humans have shown the galaxy. The Dominion is not eternal. Human diplomats quickly realized the opportunity. For centuries, alien civilizations had hidden from Earth, afraid that humans were too weak to act, too disorganized to lead. Now the galaxy sought guidance. Envoys arrived at Sol. Representatives of freed worlds begged for alliances. Star systems offered technology, trade routes, and knowledge. Entire fleets pledged their service. Species that had once been cowering now looked to humans as the spark of liberation. Yet humanity's leaders were careful. They did not see themselves as conquerors. They had no desire to rule with fear as the Dominion had. Instead, they sought a coalition, a united front against tyranny. They wanted to teach the galaxy that freedom, not oppression, was the true path to power. Still, questions remained. Could humanity maintain this momentum? Could they unite so many worlds without succumbing to the same mistakes that had corrupted the Dominion? Meanwhile, the remnants of the Dominion scattered across the galaxy. Colonies once tightly controlled slipped from their grasp. Governors and administrators found themselves abandoned by fleets that had fled or been destroyed. Some lords tried to negotiate, offering peace in exchange for loyalty. Others sent death squads attempting to reclaim control through terror. But the galaxy had changed. Fear of the humans and the hope they inspired was stronger than Dominion threats. Planets refused to bend. Worlds that had spent generations building underground resistance networks finally acted openly. Liberation movements ignited across star systems. On one distant world, a group of alien rebels watched humans' transmissions and cheered. The humans, they have done what we only dreamed of, one whispered. Maybe we can be free too. On another, a Dominion fleet commander stared at damaged systems and muttered, We underestimated them. They are not just humans. They are a force of the galaxy itself. Back in Sol, General Hale met with Earth's council. The room was filled with tension and anticipation. Humans had won a battle, yes, but the war for influence across the galaxy was only beginning. Every system that rises against the Dominion will need support, Hale said. We cannot leave them to fight alone. But if we overreach, we risk spreading ourselves too thin. Dr. Varga leaned forward. We have the Aegis Array, we have allies. We have momentum, but we must act wisely. Every victory now will be magnified, every mistake will be remembered for centuries. Hale nodded. The galaxy watches. If we guide them carefully, we can help build a future without the Dominion's tyranny. If we fail, the galaxy may descend into chaos. For the humans, the victory over the Dominion was not just a military achievement. It was a lesson to the universe. Intelligence, creativity, and willpower could overcome size, tradition, and power. Humanity's stubbornness, adaptability, and courage had turned the tables. The galaxy began to see that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, was immune to challenge. Every alien civilization, from the smallest trader to the mightiest general, began recalculating their assumptions. The humans were no longer the weak newcomers. They were the example, and with that example came hope. Hope that worlds could rise, hope that oppression could fall, hope that even the strongest could be challenged. In the shadows, the Zerath Dominion regrouped, nursing wounds and pride. Some of their lords whispered of revenge, plotting strikes against Earth and its allies. Others feared more than they hated, realizing that the humans were unpredictable, relentless, and unwilling to bow. The galaxy trembled, not in fear of humans, but in awe. Every victory inspired the next. Systems that had been silent finally raised their voices. Plans that had been impossible for decades suddenly became achievable. And humanity, small but resolute, stood at the center, not as conquerors, but as the spark that could ignite freedom across the stars. On Earth, children played in the streets, unaware of the larger war unfolding beyond their skies. Soldiers rested, exhausted but proud. Leaders plotted carefully, knowing that the choices they made now could shape the galaxy for generations. The Zerath had ruled the stars for millennia. They had crushed countless civilizations. They had believed themselves eternal, and in a single day humanity had shattered that illusion. By the end of the cycle, the galaxy was in motion. Freed systems began to form alliances. Resistance movements grew stronger. Traders and fleets moved to join the emerging coalition, and humanity, though battered and weary, had become the symbol of possibility. From the ashes of fear, a new era was dawning, one where species could rise, one where courage mattered more than tradition, and one where the humans, once unnoticed, were now the guiding force of change. The galaxy would never forget the day the humans had shattered the Dominion. The galaxy was quiet, but not in peace. It was quiet with the hum of ships moving, colonies reorganizing, and species breathing freely for the first time in centuries. Humanity had changed everything. The Zirath Dominion, once the unchallenged rulers of countless star systems, had been broken in a single day. Their fleet scattered, their command shattered, and their reputation in ruins. On Earth, humans did not celebrate in triumph alone. They were aware of the responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. They were no longer just a species struggling to survive. They had become a symbol, the spark that ignited hope across the stars. General Marcus Hale stood in the council chamber on Earth, looking at representatives from liberated systems and fledgling allies. Star systems that had lived in fear of the Zirath now looked to humans for guidance. He did not feel pride, but a deep awareness of the challenges ahead. "We have won a battle." "Yes," Hale said, "but the galaxy is larger than our fleets and freedom is fragile. Every choice we make now will shape the future." Dr. Elena Varga nodded, her eyes scanning the holographic map of star systems. "We have technology the Dominion never imagined. We have allies who have risked everything to stand with us, but we must use our power wisely. Strength without wisdom can corrupt faster than tyranny ever could." The council fell silent, each member understanding the weight of the moment. Across liberated systems, the aftermath of human victories was evident. Planets once enslaved by the Dominion were rebuilding. Trade routes reopened, governments restructured, and communities that had hidden underground for generations emerged into the light. Humans had become leaders, not conquerors, but organizers, mediators, and allies. The Aegis Array, once a secret weapon of survival, was now a symbol of human ingenuity. Scientists from other species marveled at its design. Some asked to study it. Others begged for its technology to help secure their own systems. Humanity shared carefully, teaching others how to defend themselves without replicating weapons of destruction. Even former enemies began to see the humans differently. Dominion remnants who survived the defeat were now scattered and powerless. Some tried to regain their lost control, but humans, along with allied systems, ensured that no species would again fall to fear alone. The galaxy itself seemed to awaken. Star systems that had remained isolated for centuries now joined councils and alliances. Trade flourished. Cultural exchanges spread. Knowledge that had been hoarded or hidden during the Dominion's rule became available to the public. Humanity's influence was not through force, it was through example. Captain Leora Cade, who had led the daring fighter squadron against the Dominion carriers, now oversaw an alliance fleet of diverse species. Her ship, the Starfire, flew among convoys and patrols, ensuring that liberated systems remained free. Leora had seen too much death to glorify war, but she understood the importance of maintaining security. "We cannot let old fears return," she told her officers during a briefing. "The galaxy has seen what we can do. Let them see now that we will protect freedom, not enslave it." Her officers nodded, understanding that their mission was no longer just fighting, it was teaching, guiding, and defending. On Earth, children no longer grew up hearing only tales of fear and obedience. They learned stories of courage, of humans standing against impossible odds, of entire fleets thrown into chaos by determination and creativity. For the first time, humanity had a history that inspired rather than subdued. Civilians worked with engineers to develop new technologies for exploration and defense. Schools taught the principles of strategy, ethics, and cooperation, blending knowledge from alien cultures with human innovation. Humanity's victories had shown that intellect, courage, and stubbornness were as valuable as fleets and weapons. Even as the galaxy celebrated, humans remained cautious. They knew that power could corrupt. The Zirath Dominion had once been guided by arrogance and hubris. Humanity did not wish to repeat that mistake. Every alliance, every fleet, every decision was weighed with care. In the scattered remains of the Dominion, some lords whispered of revenge. They were proud, dangerous, and still hungry for control. But the galaxy was no longer silent. Freed systems were ready, coordinated, and prepared. Humanity had inspired them not only to fight but to organize, to strategize, and to defend their liberty. Saraktor himself had gone into hiding, wounded in pride and body. He watched as the galaxy moved on without him, powerless to stop the tides he once controlled. The Zerath were no longer rulers, they were relics, examples of what arrogance could bring. Across the galaxy, new alliances formed. Trade agreements, defense pacts, and cultural exchanges became common. Systems once too afraid to speak now sent ambassadors to Earth. They did not seek domination. They sought cooperation, protection, and guidance. Humans led not with fear but with example. At the core of this new alliance, Earth became a hub for innovation and strategy. Scientists, engineers, and thinkers from dozens of species worked together. Ships were designed with input from multiple civilizations. Knowledge was shared, and humanity's stubbornness, adaptability, and creativity became the standard other species aspired to match. Yet humanity did not forget the sacrifices made. Every name lost in the battle against the Dominion was honored. Memorials were built on Earth and on liberated colonies. Stories were recorded, ensuring that the cost of freedom was never forgotten. It reminded humans that victory was not for pride, but for responsibility. Captain Cade visited one such memorial on a small moon colony. She looked at the names etched in crystal, human and alien alike. She whispered, "You gave us a chance to show the galaxy what freedom looks like. We will not waste it." Years passed and the galaxy settled into a new order. Humanity was no longer unnoticed. Humans were respected, sometimes feared, but always recognized as a force that could change the stars. And they did so not through conquest, but through courage, ingenuity, and a refusal to bow. The Aegis array became a symbol not of power, but of ingenuity and resilience. Fleets no longer waited for orders, they coordinated, adapted, and learned. Humanity's methods, their determination to think differently, had inspired countless civilizations to rise. Old empires like the Zerath could rebuild, but they would never again rule the galaxy unchecked. They had seen that strength alone was not enough. The human spirit, the drive to fight against impossible odds, had rewritten the rules. On Earth, General Hale stood one last time before a council representing dozens of species. He spoke with quiet authority. "The galaxy is vast. Challenges will come, but we have proven that even the smallest, least expected species can change the course of history. Humanity will not rule through fear, but we will protect those who cannot protect themselves. And together, we will ensure that freedom endures." Dr. Varga, standing beside him, smiled softly. "We have begun an age where courage matters more than fleets, where intelligence matters more than intimidation. The galaxy will remember this day, and it will remember humans not for their weapons but for their spirit." And so, the age of humanity began. Species that had once lived in shadows now walked freely in the stars. Systems that had been silent now spoke openly. Knowledge spread, technology advanced, and the galaxy became a place where cooperation, courage, and creativity mattered more than dominance. The Zerath Dominion would survive in fragments, but their legacy as the galaxy's unchallenged rulers was gone, and humanity, once underestimated and unnoticed, had become the guiding force in a new era. In the quiet of space, new ships left Earth, carrying humans and allies to distant worlds. They carried messages of hope, strategies for defense, and the promise that freedom could be defended. Everywhere they went, civilizations looked on with awe. Humans had shattered the greatest power in the galaxy in one day. And in doing so, they had shown the universe what it truly meant to fight for freedom. The galaxy trembled once, not in fear of humans, but in awe of what one species could achieve. And from that awe came hope. A hope that would light the stars for generations. The age of humanity had arrived,